All right, well, we didn't this afternoon in Parliament, as we saw, see Labor get the debate they were after on the economy. Parliament unable to be the space for that, but we're glad we can this afternoon.
Here we go.
Our panel.
Bring it on.
Liberals Jason Polinsky and Labor's Patrick Gorman. Very good afternoon to both.
Good afternoon.
Ding, ding, ding. Look, if we
don't you do that when it's over?
No, that's right. If we'd had the debate, what would Labor have said?
Well, I think there is serious concern on the Labor side, and I don't think it's just on the Labor side, but across Australia about the need for more infrastructure spending, about the IMF's downgrade of Australia's economic growth figures. I mean, downgraded by 0.4%. That is a significant downgrade. We would like to know whether the government is expecting to downgrade their own figures, their own projections.
I'll do that in mid-year budget updates, normally where they do it. I don't think Labor didn't used to put out
no, but we did have
a new forecast every other day.
No, we did have an unusual situation this year with a much earlier budget than normal. So I don't know when the government is planning to do the
mid-year budget update, where it's always done, isn't it?
December.
Well, it's done. Yeah, it's done at a time the government chooses.
Well, you get one in the budget, you get one in the mid-year budget update. Like, are you saying there needs to be more forecast than that?
What we've asked the government this a number of times is, have they changed their forecasts of where the growth in the Australian economy?
So you are saying they need to...
And whether they choose to do that in the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook, or whether they choose to just tell the Parliament in the debate that we didn't have, that's up to the government.
But pulling together a forecast is not something you just, snap your fingers, here's the latest forecast. There's a bit of work goes in. Is there a need for a new forecast given all these other groups, as Patrick says, IMF, RBA, OECD, are changing their forecasts?
Well, they change their forecasts from time to time according to their timetable. We'll update our forecasts or review the forecasts that we have according to our timetable. There's no time to panic and flap our arms and, run around saying the sky's falling in. Quite the opposite's happening. We have an economy where you've got...
The sky may not be falling in, but how would you describe the economy?
Well, we've got an economy with low inflation, low unemployment, low...
growth.
A trade surplus. You know what? That sounds like a pretty good economic story.
So the economy's pretty good?
The economy's pretty good, yeah. Now, is there more work to be done? Yeah, absolutely.
Is the economy pretty good?
The Australian economy is an amazing beast, but we should never take that for granted. And when you start to see worrying signs like low wage growth, increasing household debt, then you've got to ask some hard questions.
So hard question is one thing, but how would you describe the economy right now?
Underperforming.
So underperforming, pretty good.
Performing.
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 Underperforming.
Underperforming.
Based on
what people in my electorate tell me, based on what we are seeing, indeed, it's when you have a downgrade of Australia's growth forecast from the IMF, that is a sign that things are not as good as they were.
But I think we have to put...
I'm not a purist. I accept there are international factors and domestic factors. We are an internationalised economy, so we do have to think about these things in a broad context, but it doesn't mean that we can't have an honest debate.
All right, well, if it's underperforming, do you think we need stimulus?
I've been very clear that I'd like to see more infrastructure spending, and infrastructure spending that is currently programmed to be brought forward. Such as there's a range of public transport infrastructure projects in Western Australia that could be brought forward. There is, I've been a strong advocate for light rail in the Perth CBD. I'd love to see the government come up with a check, and I know that even the member for Stirling has been advocating a light rail project in his electorate, which joins mine. So I don't think there'll be a lack of ideas in the Parliament of where you can spend infrastructure money.
Is there a willingness for the government to do a bit more infrastructure spending?
David, the fact of the matter is we have $100 billion a pipeline of infrastructure spending. But I mean, even the Governor of the Reserve Bank says, when you look around Australia, in New South Wales and Victoria, you're pretty much at full capacity and full bandwidth in terms of how much infrastructure you can keep building at the moment.
And there's not the workforce, the cranes...
The cranes, the tunnelling machinery, the quantitative surveyors...
There's only so much capacity you can
Before you get hyperinflation in the building costs.
Well, look, we saw that in Western Australia during the mining boom, that there was...
Do we see that now?
I don't want to speak. I'll let those from New South Wales speak about New South Wales.
I'll say you've listed the infrastructure project. I'm just asking, can they actually be built now?
There's definitely capacity in the West Australian economy. We still have unemployment in Western Australia that is higher than we would like. There are skilled people in Western Australia who've come off mining projects who could be deployed either in the West or in New South Wales or elsewhere. There is capacity to do more, and we, unemployment, in my view, is still a little higher than we would like, especially given Jason tells us the economy is going great. So there are still people who'd like to get jobs.
It's come down today, the unemployment rate.
Indeed, and it did in my state of Western Australia by 0.1%. That's a good thing. That is thousands and thousands of people finding jobs, and I'll always say that it is good to see unemployment.
But if you did all those projects you're talking about, would there be a danger of putting the surplus at risk?
Well, the surplus has not been delivered yet. I think
the surplus forecast for this year we're in, would that be at risk?
Well, Jason just spoke about a 10-year infrastructure pipeline. I'd say the pipeline is a little bit congested at the moment. You might need to get a plumber in.
You just said there's
That's a great analogy. I like it.
No, my question was, would the surplus
be
be at risk this year if you did what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm not in government. I don't have access to those day-to-day Treasury updates. So the reality is that is something that the government can actually look at.
Do you have any idea?
Yeah, of course it would be. You're going to spend more money. You're obviously going to endanger the surplus that's been forecast in the budget.
And do you think we should?
Nope.
More important to protect that surplus than...
It's more important that you have federal budget, your government budgets on a sustainable pathway. So if you're not paying down debt now, when are you paying it down? I mean, the left in this country always have an excuse to spend more money. There's always a good reason not to be paying down debt.
Is the IMF from the left?
The IMF, some members of the IMF, yeah.
So when they say economies like Australia need to stimulate, you put that down to a bit of left-wing groupthink?
Pretty much.
Right. So you're ignoring the National Monetary Fund because of their political bias?
I'm not ignoring them. I'm not ignoring them.
But you're dismissing their advice because of political bias?
No, I think that they need to provide the evidence to that effect, and there doesn't seem to be the evidence for what they're saying. I mean, when you look at their growth forecast downgrade last month, which then they held a press conference for this week, what that is based on is the trade disagreement, or what they say it's based on, is the trade war between the United States and China.
You reckon that's over?
Well, who knows is the truth.
Exactly.
But who knows whether it's as bad as they are saying.
So they should have ignored that trade dispute?
No, that's their job to have a look at that sort of stuff. But do you really think that that is something that we should panic at? I mean, when all this was going...
I think it's something we should factor in.
And when the budget was being drawn up...
You don't think we should factor in...
No, but my question to you is, when the budget... No, we're asking this question. When the budget was being drawn up, was there not already trade disputes between the United States and China? I mean, my point is that this was all well known when the budget was being framed and developed.
Well, let me answer that. Yes, there was a trade dispute.
Yes.
But when was the budget handed down?
April. I remember it very well. You were there too.
There's been a significant deterioration in that trade dispute. Tariffs have increased and increased. This has gone back and forth. I mean, we can look at Donald Trump's Twitter stream if you'd like, but it's pretty evident that trade dispute is a whole lot worse than it was in April.
I dispute that, to be honest.
I
dispute your dispute.
That China and the US have whacked extra tariffs on each other.
No, I don't dispute that, but I dispute the fact that the pathway that dispute's on has got worse.
Sorry, the pathway...
If you go back to last year, frankly, when this started, what the United States was claiming and what China said they were willing to give, the trajectory that this trade dispute has taken has been pretty clear and has followed a reasonably clear path.
All right, we don't want to get too bogged down in that. Let me ask do you think the New Start allowance should be increased?
Well, of course he does.
I do. I've been very... and Jason says, of course I do. I do. Many business organisations do.
What would that cost?
Well, I haven't put a figure on it. I have actually...
It's easy to say increase New Start without putting a figure on it.
I believe that we should have a significant increase. I've actually been critical of the Australian Council. I've actually been critical of the Australian Council of Social Services for putting a figure on their request, because I believe that if you've got a welfare program and its goal is to help keep people out of poverty when they cannot find a job, that is the broadest, the broad intent of New Start, then you've got to make sure that the payment you are giving people achieves that outcome. Currently, it's not.
So $40 a day is where it is at the moment. The welfare lobby want an extra $70 a week.
They do.
Are you saying that's too much?
I say it was the wrong decision to focus on a dollar figure rather than to focus on making sure that the policy does what it's intended to do. That is to make sure that people don't live in poverty, are able to have a standard of living that, for a first world country like Australia...
And can you do that
on our values.
Can you do that on $50 a day?
Look, I think anyone who's on New Start, whether it's at $40, $50, $60, is doing it really tough.
So it needs to be more than $60 a day.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying I would like to see it increased. I think everyone on the Labor side would like to see it increased. Indeed, people on the coalition side, Barnaby Joyce, would like to see it increased.
Would you like to see it increased?
No, I don't. It wouldn't be my preferred option.
You don't think those on $40 a day deserve any more?
No, I think they're doing it tough, but it's not my preferred option in terms of helping them.
Why not?
Because I think it's much better to get people off welfare into a job than it is to leave them on welfare.
And will drug testing help?
To those people who are on drug addictions, yes, it will.
But this applies to all, not just those who are on drug addictions.
No, it only applies to people that are showing indications of drug addiction.
How are you going to identify them in the crowd?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question, but I suspect it will be done by case officers who will, when people present.
Awkward position to put case
It is
officers
a
in,
very
though, is
awkward
to have to
position to
start to tick a box saying,
Yeah.
oh, I think this person's on drugs, because they have long-term relationships
Yeah,
with
I agree.
clients.
I agree, it's tough.
And if they
But if you
get that
really
called
care,
wrong,
and Pat, you and I agree on this,
Yeah.
but if you really care about someone who's on welfare, you want to get them off welfare, and I'm happy to run through the reasons why.
All right,
if they're addicted to drugs, you want to help them.
Let's move to the drought. Should drought-stricken farmers lose their assistance, their farm household allowance, after 4 years?
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
What do you mean, maybe?
Well, I think we are doing a lot around the drought, and the objective is the question is, how do you support farmers in the short term to make sure that they can stay on the land? The second question is, in the medium term, how do you help people transition to a better position? And the third thing that we're doing is long term, how do you provide better water infrastructure?
What if you're in drought for 6 or 7 or 8 years?
That's the tough question.
So
That's
should
why
they?
I say maybe.
Yeah. So this is why you've got a seat in Parliament. Should they lose that assistance after 4 years?
Well, yeah, it's a tough question. I can't. At the moment,
know, or
well, the truth is, I don't think any of us know, and there's something that we are at this point in time.
well, I hate to break it to you, but your government does have a position of yes, they should lose it after 4 years.
Yeah,
Are you not sure whether that's right, or?
Well, I think we will need to keep to observe whether that is actually working and achieving the objectives that we
Need to be
want
open to increasing that.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, and Labor reckons you should keep paying it. What, for how long?
well, one of the things we've suggested is that we should have a war cabinet style
Yeah, I
arrangement.
know that, but my question is, should you
but
keep paying this farm household allowance forever while someone's in drought?
we are facing a drought that is very different to the sorts of droughts and for the duration and severity of what we faced before. So, of course, policy settings that have previously made a lot of sense and sent very clear signals to farmers about how they might...
So the question is, should you keep paying beyond 4 years?
I actually would like to see these things discussed in a really mature way where you have multiple sides of politics.
Okay, well, I'll break it to you as well. Your position from Joel
breaking news on
Well, I'm just telling you what your own party's positions are. Yours is to keep paying it while ever they're in drought. Do you agree?
Look, I think of the two choices of cutting someone off at 4 years or continuing a payment that people have been relying on to keep their family going, of course that's the choice you'd make. But if you want to have the sort of policies that allow a big, diverse country like Australia to deal with droughts that are more severe than they've been in the past, then you need to have everyone around the table. That's what I think.
Keep paying it while ever they're in drought.
Well, look, of the two options available to us, that would be my preference.
Right, we got to go to a break. Thank you both very much, Patrick Gorman, Jason Falinski, for joining us this afternoon.